Over the past couple of years, we've seen an influx of indie games that check a couple of boxes. They are cheap to make, they are multiplayer in nature, they have voice proximity chat, and they lose all appeal without someone else to play them with. These kinds of games have been labeled as FriendSlop by a vocal minority online. After this viral tweet, comment sections have been filled with the term FriendSlop to put down any game that has friend groups playing it. So, in this video, I want to answer the question, are these games really hurting the gaming community? Why do we play these types of games? Developers keep creating these sandboxes for us to roleplay in. FriendSlop has been loosely defined as games that are cheap to make and buy, have a simple enough gameplay loop, and use other players to enhance the experience. I think it is that last part that is rubbing some people the wrong way, maybe because they don't have any friends to play with. From my perspective, and if you were a theater kid, you probably enjoyed watching your friends go up on the stage and try to make you and other people laugh. And I think it is this feeling of wanting to make other people laugh that these games are built on. There have been great YouTube channels that use this aspect of gaming to their advantage. These people have taken the limitations or features of a game and created their own theater improv with them. Some examples are groups like Banos Gaming. They took games like GTA and Gmod and started making their own sketches, comedy bits, callbacks, running gags, all within the limitations of the games they were playing. There's also Game Grumps, Yogscast, Funhouse, Rooster Teeth, and Rest in Peace as one of the channels that I used to watch all the time when I first got introduced to YouTube. The Creature Hub. This used to be one of my favorite channels growing up, and they all have one thing in common: theater. Their performances on these digital stages or sandboxes is what really made watching these games fun. When you play something as open-ended as Minecraft, you realize that the goal or story to tell in the game can be anything you want. And I believe that is one of the biggest reasons as to why people play these games, to express themselves. The internet is a stage, and all the YouTubers and Twitch streamers merely players. A quote from Shakespeare if he was still alive. So we gotta ask ourselves, were FriendSlop games always there? Or is this truly a new genre taking over the gaming space? If we rewind to earlier YouTube, some iconic games that were spread by YouTubers or streamers back then were games like Mount Your Friends, Bloody Trapland, Tory Bash, Gang Beasts, Draw My Thing, Battle Block Theater, Speedrunners, Human Fall Flat, Golf with Friends. Also, many game modes on Gmod that kind of spilled over into their own titles. But these games didn't become a part of pop culture compared to this game. I'm pretty sure everyone and their grandparents played this game. Among Us. It released back in 2018, but it didn't gain popularity until we were all locked indoors during COVID. And that is one of the big reasons as to why it's so widely known. But this game didn't spark any FriendSlop conversations, partly because we all had the time to hang out online, and there wasn't a big influx in clones yet. Some people might argue that Phasmophobia was the biggest precursor to this whole genre, but I don't think it got the same level of viral clips or player count as this next game did. It's wild to think that Lethal Company came out in October of 2023 and spread like wildfire. I had funny TikToks all over my feed and friends were talking to me like the Wolf of Wall Street convincing me to buy the game. Most of the sentiment over FriendSlop games comes from the cheap games that started appearing after this one ran its course. I think one of the main things that made this game so popular in the first place was integrating proximity voice chat. There was a time for me personally where I just wanted to find and play any games that had that feature built in. Why? Because I kept seeing funny clips of people goofing around in PUBG. And to tie this to my intro, I truly believe proximity chat gives everyone a chance to give their best voice acting performance in this quote-unquote digital stage. One of the first games to follow suit after Lethal Company was the co-op horror game Content Warning. This game was created during a game jam in less than a month and shares a lot of the same aspects as Lethal Company. I honestly skipped this game completely because I wasn't a fan of the art style, but when I heard the premise for the game, I actually thought it was something I would have played unironically. In the end, that game felt like it needed more content, and the modding community didn't really save it. Not long after this, Steam started getting spam with similar titles like Sort or Murky Divers. Games that were very lethal like, but these games didn't really blow up. Until February of 2025. Repo released and the memes were everywhere. I thought this game had a better gameplay loop than any of them. The only thing that made me avoid the game initially was the really bad brain rot inducing cover image that the developers used. It was also around this time that people were getting tired of jumping ship from all these different games. On average, a game you play with your friends can last up to a year or more if there is new content or updates coming along. And when you have a lot of developers announcing their take on a horror proximity chat experience like Scary Cargo, it can start to leave a bad taste in your mouth, especially when they use AI to promote their game and later change it while gaslighting everyone about it. Games that do deserve the FriendSlop criticism are games like Headliners or Content Warning, where the whole gameplay loop is just to clip farm for the developers. But games like Repo are different, not only in terms of feel, but also if you watch the developer log videos, you can truly see the work and care that went into the game and their efforts in providing more content for the community they built. Personally, their developer logs is what made me look past their horrendous logo and appreciate the game they ended up making with each iteration. Another game that falls outside of the usual FriendSlop term is Peak. It took the premise of Only Up and its copy chained together and basically made a less slop-looking version with fun items that make for a good online party game. This game sold 2 million copies in 9 days, which is wild for a game that was made in basically 5 months from start to finish. The biggest draw for these games, outside of the theatrics of it all, is having a foundation to just hang out with your friend and explore the world you're sharing together. This game naturally capitalizes on the yes and aspects of theater. Players need each other's help to keep climbing up, and this promotes conversations that bring all players closer together as they climb. Even items in the game were made with the sole purpose of promoting slapstick comedy or just messing with your friends. But are we just allowing indie game developers to get away with a bare minimum viable product as a full-fledged game? Is this hurting the gaming community? Are these games good? I don't think these games are hurting the community overall. In a way, we kind of need more of these games to iterate over what we actually want to play as a community. These games are cheap enough compared to the current AAA games that want to charge you more and drip feed you DLC thanks to their overinflated budgets. Comparing both, it does feel like you get your value's worth out of indie games, and most of the time the developers or community themselves keep adding content to the game with free patches or mods. In the end, I think this new subgenre of games is slowly defining itself, and we should focus on shaping the landscape as players instead of dismissing it as a whole. Souls-like games went through this with their famous combat design mechanics. Battle Royale games like PUBG went through this by trying to patent their game mode after games like Fortnite started gaining popularity. And now we have this subgenre of games that are being built with co-op in mind above all else. These games are experiences, and after the hype dies down, the games we love the most will carry on in the form of mechanics or game modes in the games that come after.